Everyone, thank you so much for your participation today. Today we have two exceptional individuals with us, Arden Jolly and Debbie Boone. I'm your host today, Corinne Jeffers. I'm Senior Director of Support here at Weave. Could I ask each of you briefly to introduce yourselves? And we'll start with you, Debbie.
All right. I am Debbie Boone. I'm a certified veterinary practice manager, and I own a consulting company called Two Managed Vets Consulting. I've been in the veterinary profession since 1985, starting as a part-time receptionist, and I have been consulting for the last 16 years. So it's been a long journey through vet med, but I've loved every minute of it.
Amazing. Thank you. And Arden?
So my name is Arden Jolly, and currently I'm the executive director at a nonprofit dental clinic in North Carolina. I've been in dentistry since 1993, and I do own a dental consulting firm, and I do some dental speaking and coaching on the side. I like to speak about dental team building, leadership, culture, things of that nature. But I've been in dentistry for a long time. I've been a started as a dental assistant in 93 and was a dental office manager for many years. And like I said, now I'm a director here at a nonprofit dental clinic.
Powerful women leaders. I absolutely love this today. We're going to kick off incredibly quickly, and I'm going to start with origin stories, which I think it's important to begin at the very beginning of things. Can you talk me through each of your origin story? You've already sort of spoke about that a little bit, but Debbie, could you tell us a little bit more about your beginnings?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the restaurant business. My family owned restaurants, and I've always laughed and said, and they firmly believed in child labor. So my brother and I both started working at a very young age in the restaurant, whether we were buzzing tables or serving the public. And I always wanted to be a veterinarian. That was my goal in life. So I applied to NC State. I got a degree in animal science and pre-vet, and then when I got through undergraduate, the goal was that they would have the vet school there, but they didn't build it fast enough for me. So it wasn't there. So I got out of school, got married, decided I didn't want to be a veterinarian anymore. So I started managing one of the restaurants. Then my husband and I moved to Greensboro, North Carolina, and I got a job as a part-time receptionist in an animal hospital. And actually, I was working in two different hospitals that the practice owner had. And I'd work one in the morning, and then I'd go over and work on the other one in the afternoon. Well, I did that for about 6 months at minimum wage and decided I was going to starve. So I went and got a job as the manager of a retail fabric shop. My grandmother was a seamstress, and I still sew some stuff today. And then I left there to go to work at a retail jewelry store. Now, I was there for about a month, and my husband said, "We're going to go broke if you don't get out of this jewelry store." But one day I sold one of my associate veterinarians a watch, and 2 days later, my former boss called me up and said, "I need a manager. You need to come over here and talk to me." And he hired me the week of Memorial Day and said, "Okay, I don't know what you're going to do, but here." And that was my job description. He'd never had a manager before. And that's how I started managing veterinary hospitals. And I managed that practice for 19 years. And then I moved on when he got close to retirement to another practice that was 11 veterinarians, 24 hours a day. We managed the shelter for the county, and we did specialty work. And so I managed that one for 3.5 years. And then I started my consulting practice.
Wow. So from child laborer to leader. Amazing. You've been a leader all along. What a pedigree. Arden, can you tell us a little bit more about your origin?
So I actually started, my mom was a dental office manager, and in high school, I would go in to her practice after school and set up the instruments, clean the instruments, develop x-rays. That was back in the olden days where we had actual films. You'd go in the dark room, dip. Yeah, I said that tells my age. And that dentist, his name was J.C. Hill, and he passed away recently, but he taught me my teeth numbers and my surfaces. He taught me all kinds of things. And after I graduated high school, he actually hired me to be his dental assistant. So back then you did not have to, you could go to school, but you did not have to be certified. You could just be office trained. And so he hired me as his assistant. And so I was a dental assistant for many years. I was a terrible dental assistant. I really was terrible. And the employer before I came here, I was a dental assistant for many years. He looked at me one day and he was like, I'm going to move you up front and hire you to be my office manager, because I had much better skills as a front office team member and much more organizational and leadership skills than I did dental assistant skills. And I'm so thankful that he gave me the opportunity, because it was much better at the front office than I was in an assistant. And he saw that in me and gave me the opportunity. And so for many years, I struggled as an assistant, and I love dentistry. And I can still go back there and do assisting if I have to, but I do prefer to be up front in the management area than I do back at chair side. So thankfully, finally, someone saw that I did love dentistry with all my heart, but I did do much better in the management side of things and the business side of things than the assisting side of things. So thankfully, finally, after probably 30 years, someone finally saw that.
I love that. Well, and it sounds like we all had our beginnings as child laborers. So me too. I get to raise my hand and say me also. Here's the thing though, being in a leadership position, especially with this particular pedigree, it's one thing to receive the opportunity. It's another thing to stay there. What's kept you in leadership all of these years?
Well, for me, I think maybe growing up as the boss's daughter, it was just kind of a natural thing. It seems to, you kind of pick that stuff up from your parents and how to manage people. And I think I learned how to run P&Ls by osmosis from our bookkeeper when I was 15, working in the office. But I've always enjoyed people. And I think that's part of being a good leader, is you really have to understand that the people make the business and you are there as their coach. And, sometimes just, I used to laugh about having a therapy chair and a box of Kleenex in my office, because if you're a good leader, your people will come to you with their problems, not just work problems, but all problems. And then you're there as that guide to help them. I never have been a manager who loved numbers. I appreciate numbers and I like data for what it tells me, but I've never been one of those people who just loves to run reports and do numbers. For me, the people side was always the more interesting side. And I think that probably helps keep you in a leadership position, because a lot of times, especially in veterinary medicine, where people get into it because they like animals better than humans, it really, they're like, here, do the people part, I'll do the medicine.
Brilliant. Go ahead.
My favorite saying is that leadership is not about titles or a paycheck. It's about the heart. And I think that you have to have a heart for it. And I think it's about empathy and caring and loving people. And if you don't have that, then leadership is not for you. And I don't think it's something that, I don't know if it can be taught. I think management can be taught. And like you said, the numbers can be taught and those things can be taught. But I think true leadership, you have to really care deeply for your people, and you have to love them, and you have to have an open door. And like you said, you may have to have your box of Kleenex there, and you may have to have a therapist session. I've just went to my first public health conference last week, and they talked a lot about you have to be able to listen and ask open questions, and not, which is hard for me because I'm a fixer, and when my people come to me, I want to be able to fix it. And I've got to learn to take a step back and listen to them better, and not just jump in there and want to fix their problems. And but I think leadership is just about having a heart for people and loving them. And I think that was the question that was asked.
Perfectly. And one of the comments in the chat just now, I think really sums it up in 2 words: servant leadership. Both of you obviously are examples of that. And what a privilege today. One of the things though that I'm really struck by is how all of us have had multiple decades within our careers, and we've seen kind of shifts in landscape. over the last, several decades. I'm wondering, what's one thing that we can do, all of us, to create a more inviting workplace for women today?
Well, I think veterinary medicine is almost 60, 70% female. So we have to pay attention to the women in our profession. One of the things we certainly can do is to be flexible about child issues, certainly maternity leaves, and making sure that we have plans for people, backup plans for people who are off. And I think it's a little bit easier in larger practices. My practice went from a 2-doctor to a 5-doctor practice in the first one. And there was a lot of flexibility when our doctors got out to have babies, that we could just adjust the schedule. We tried to never make people feel guilty about things that are happening with their families. But there were other things too, that they tend to be the caregivers. And so having that flexibility that says, if your husband is being treated for cancer, don't worry about this. We got it. We'll figure something out. Working schedules around what people need, making sure that we are paying them equally for equal work, looking at women to promote them. For people like me and Arden, we got here, but we will always reach back and help pull somebody else up. And I think that is a huge part of how we help women advance in our professions, is reaching back to the young ones, mentoring people, and being a coach to young women and saying, you can do this. Here's how you can do it. Let me talk to you about whatever the situation is. Let me advance you as a speaker, or talk to you about writing a magazine article if these are the things that you want to do. Because over the time, you build a network and you use your network for other people.
It's about pacing, right? Helping the next generation pace a little bit quicker. Definitely an important point there. Arden, what's your perspective?
So I agree with everything Debbie just said. And I had actually a girl text me last night and just needs some reassurance. She, I'm sure the same thing in Debbie's field too, but since COVID, a lot of us in dentistry have lost I want to say joy. We've lost our joy for dentistry. We've lost our love that we used to have, and it's become stressful. It's the workforce in every field. And I've been out to Weave, and I know you guys have a remarkable company, and a lot of you guys can work from home and you have that support. And obviously in dentistry, and probably in Debbie's field too, a lot of us can't work from home. But I think Debbie's right, that support, not making people feel guilty. What Debbie said about childcare, I have some of the reverse going on too. Not only do some of my generation of employees have childcare, but I also have a generation that are now caretakers for their parents. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 generations. I'm in the middle. My child is college age, so I'm kind of in that generation where I kind of can do whatever. So I can help out more than I could maybe 20 years ago. But in a few years, maybe I'm going to be in the opposite side. So maybe some of us in my generation now have to do a little more than the younger generation or the older generation. But I think just making sure that we're helping out where we can, not making people feel guilty, maybe overstaff 1 team member. Is it going to cost us that much? No. But if we had one more, in my case, say we had one more dental assistant, would you notice that you had one more dental assistant? Probably not, because every day you're going to be out probably 1 team member. Have 1 dental assistant that can work at the front office, that can be a dental assistant, that could assist hygiene, whatever that the case may be. Is it going to make that much at the end of the day as far as salary? You're probably not going to notice it that much, but it's going to be such a relief to your team that it's going to help morale so much. It's going to be worth that extra salary that you're going to pay at the end of the day, because you're not going to be there hearing all the complaints and the concerns and the issues, because you're burning your staff out and then they're going to leave. And that's what's happening. The leaders of these companies, of these small businesses, are not understanding that they are burning their team members out because they're getting so overworked. And we won't even talk about the pay. We're just talking about the overwork because they are short staffed. The leaders are not recognizing that and they're trying to find good people to help, and just get one more employee in there to help for those absences so that it can compensate for that, and don't make them feel guilty.
It's interesting, right? Because I'm in a similar position where I need to pay it forward for all of the graces that I was given earlier in my career when I needed that extra support and love. And now it's about really paying that forward. And are we equipped for the journey? Are we equipped for the burden? Heck yes, we are, because
Right.
we are forged in hot fires, right? The other thing here that I love, and this is a parody against my world as well. You're right. An additional resource does actually bake against burnout on teams. And here at Weave, I have a large support team, and it's something that is always on the front of my mind. How do I ensure the work balance? And not to overburden those, especially, people have lives, things happen. How do we really ensure that we pad the workforce to adequately serve the people that we're serving, right? It's a privilege to serve those who serve others. And we're in unique businesses that allow for that. So really, really wonderful points. Well, we're in it now, ladies. Let's go into the next question. And this one's a good one. What are you battling today? And what are you doing to ensure that you win, whatever it might be?
Wow, time. I think time is always a battle for people who are, in demand or do a lot of things. My personal battle is I'm so interested in a lot of things that I want to say yes to a lot of things. But the problem being, you have to realistically look at yourself and go, I can't do all these things and do them well. So I'm going to have to choose what I do. And I think I have a friend who is an excellent speaker, and we were talking about doing an exercise called Feed Forward. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but we tend to give people feedback and say, here's what you're doing wrong. Instead, you go, okay, here's my problem. Help me solve it. So my problem, I said to Cindy, is I really do want to overcommit my time. And I see all these things that are just so fascinating. I'd love to get my fingers in doing this stuff. And she said, here's what I would say to yourself when you're looking at these projects that come up is, does it serve your goal? Look at what is your final goal in life and what difference you want to make in the world, and say, does this project serve my final goal? And if it does, then investigate it more and maybe get committed to it. If it doesn't, then it's easy to say, this is not for me. And it's a good filter. And I think that's probably my biggest challenge, is because the more you're known in your profession, the more opportunities come to you. And you go, oh, wow, that's very cool. I'd like to do that. But you have to stop yourself and be a little picky about what you're going to get involved with.
I love that. And it's finite, right? Time is finite. And I think we're all battling against that same thing. Arden, what's your perspective?
Well, that's a tough one, because I really I'm really at a really good place right now. I have really good work-life balance, and I don't really have anything pressing right now, which is really odd for me to say, because normally I would have a whole list of things, but I feel really blessed in my life right now. And with this new position that I've accepted, I have really good balance in my life. And so I'm almost scared to even say anything, because I'm afraid it's going to bring it to light, and it's going to. But so I'm just going to say that I am blessed and things are running really smoothly right now. And so I'm just going to go with that.
I hope for all of us we can achieve Arden's
Absolutely.
Zen. Let's all
And
hope
so
that for each other.
the answer is, it is okay to say no, and it is okay to let some things go. And what I have learned is micromanaging your team is not a good thing, and it's okay to let them. You hire great team members, let them do their thing. So that is something that I have learned in the past 9 months. So There we go.
Brilliant. And that's a perfect segue to one of the questions we received in the chat. With the pandemic, and you kind of mentioned this, it's changed the landscape quite a bit. One of the issues that was brought up was hiring additional staff members, and how having a unique part-time schedule and balancing that with pay. How are you today recruiting in a post-pandemic era?
You want me to answer that?
I think Arden, you take that one first.
For sure.
Okay. So this is what I have found. If you have a great culture and a great leader, people are going to want to work for you. And if you have the practice that people are known, that people, you can put an ad on Indeed, and the next day you're going to get resumes because people are looking to see if you're hiring. If you have that culture that people know that they're not going to want to interview at your practice, you want to build that culture. You want people knocking down the door to come to work for you. So you need to take a look in the mirror and see, are you that practice? Are you the practice? Are you the leader that people want to work for? And if you're not, then make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I firmly believe that, and I'll go to my grave believing that if you are the leader, the team, whatever it is that people are begging to come work for, you're not going to have one problem finding anybody to work for you.
100% agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were. I think the last time I was interviewing veterinarians for my practice, I think I had 35 applicants. And today, of course, it's definitely different than it was in 2008. But the goal is to be the place everybody wants to work, the place all the clients want to come, and the place everybody wants to buy when you get ready to retire. And that's the business that you want to build. So how do you do that? Well, you're going to, like Arden said, you're going to build a great culture where people, the word of mouth, these are small communities. We like to think that, it's a big world, but it is a small community in veterinary medicine. And I'm sure it is in dentistry too. Everybody knows everybody. And they know, especially in their town, who the place is, who pays well, looks after their team well, and, has a culture that the clients enjoy coming. Because that's the other thing that happened during COVID is that, people were all, I call them fractious. That's what we call cats when they get spicy. We call them fractious. So we had a public that was on edge, and we have to realize that we were on edge too, because we are, as Arden said, we're tired. I mean, the community is tired. So when we're both worn out on both sides, and there's a lot of mental anxiety because you think you're going to get sick and somebody's, sick and dying over here, and the germs are attacking you at all times, especially if work like we work, then it is anxiety laden. But the people who have good cultures support each other, and they help get through hard times, no matter what those hard times are. So the practices that were good communicators, had great cultures, really didn't deal with these belligerent clients because they had built trust over the years. And the client said, I trust you. I've been working with you for years and years. And so if this is what you say I need to do, this is what I'll do. And the ones who struggled, I think, were the ones who hadn't built those relationships and hadn't gotten to know their clients, hadn't made the connections. And so particularly with clients calling around, because veterinary medicine got to the point where people adopted millions of animals over the pandemic. And we were so inundated with people with new pets and adoptive pets that we could not possibly handle the workload. We were booking months out, and people were upset because they were used to getting in within a couple of days. So it was a real challenge during that time, but it was all about communicating and not blindsiding people and letting them know what the new rules were before they drove up to the door, instead of when they walked in and going, oh, by the way, you can't come in the building and you have to wear a mask, and we'll take your pet back and you won't see us do anything to it. People were upset about that. So that's a leadership thing too.
And those same practices are the ones that team members came back and felt cared for and valued and appreciated because they communicated with them just as they did their clients. And I'll give you an example. this is not all about money either. I work for a nonprofit dental clinic. We have no money, but I still have people wanting to work for me. And it's
Mhm.
because they know if they come here, I'm going to value them. I'm going to appreciate them. They're going to go home feeling cared for. And those things mean just as much, if not more, than how much money they're going to take home at the end of the day.
That's right. Having a charter, something to live by, right? It would be from one leader to another, to both of you. It'd be a pleasure to work for either of you. I can tell that. This last question, I want to take a little bit of time because this one's a deep one, but and this has been such a powerful session. In passing the torch to the next generation of great women leaders, what is the single most important legacy that we can leave or that you can leave?
For me, it's going to be an understanding of how your job is really to support your team. And as Arden said, love your people because they know it. And then you can't run a business, a successful business, one that doesn't have employee turnover and has, great client retention, if all you care about is money. And profit matters, but because we have to pay people, and we want to pay people, and our doctors want investments. They invested a lot in equipment and building their practice out. So there's certainly logic into that. But the other part of this is you've got to work for purpose, and you've got to know that when you leave at the end of the day, you did some good in the world, and then you can feel like you accomplished something. I feel like when people work at jobs just for a paycheck, and a lot of people will go into medicine because they think there's money there. And sometimes it is, but if you don't have any heart for it, then you're just doing the task. You're not doing the real work, which is really healing and empathizing and leaving the world better than you walked in that morning.
The antithesis of apathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Arden, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, same as Debbie. I think, of course, when I got into dentistry, I was a young mom. Yeah, I just wanted a paycheck. I had bills to pay, and I didn't just work to get a paycheck. But the older I've gotten, educate yourself, go to those CEs, learn everything that you can learn. I was one of those old ones that decided in my 40s to get my degree, my business degree. But love your team, educate yourself, know your worth. And I'm not talking about money, but know your worth and know your value. And yes, go to work to do for a reason, for a why, for a vision or mission. If you don't believe in your company's mission, you're at the wrong company. So I know Weave's big on that. I'm sure, Debbie's businesses are, I actually had mine printed. Etsy made this beautiful, printed canvas for my mission. If you don't believe in your company's mission, you're at the wrong company. And that's fine. It's fine. It's not good for you, and it's not good for your owner, your business. You need to find another company that you believe in. So that's my 2 cents.
And just one other piece of that, I think everybody kind of starts somewhere. Maybe they aren't mission driven to begin with. And you kind of touched on this, Arden, where you are not sure what you're going to do. You're attempting to, make a paycheck and that sort of thing. I think that lends itself to pacing, though, and the legacy as well, is how do we encourage and mentor those who really aren't mission focused quite yet in their career or in their maturity. We have a couple more seconds here, and one last little point. What can we do in 3 words or less to encourage people to be more mission focused?
I think, as Arden said, sit down and look at yourself. Like, what lights you on fire? What makes you feel good about the work that you've done? What do you want to see as a change in the world? And then understand your own core values. Core values, you can find a core values list, a dozen places on the internet, but sit down and look at those core values and know what they are. I have mine posted in my office, and I look at them all the time. So you have to have your personal mission and your personal values, and they have to be in line with the work that you want to do.
Beautiful.
It's kind of cliche, but the old, know your why. Why do you get up and do what you do? I decided late that I wanted to work in a nonprofit because I wanted to help people, the underserved people that don't have dental care or need dental care. And I'm very thankful I did. But just know your why. And it is very cliche, but
Know your
that's my
why
3
and
words.
know your why, live your why, and tell others, for sure.
There we go.
Well, ladies,
Absolutely.
what a privilege it's been today. First and foremost, I'm super grateful that you spent this time with us. And for all of those who are participating today, thank you so much for your time. From all of us here, we're so glad you could be with us today. That's the end of our session. Happy Tuesday. Thank you all again so very much.
Thank you. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks for having us.